You know, hockey goalies often get a bit of a bad rap. Teammates will refer to them as flaky, certainly superstitious, bit of their own breed, maybe even quirky. But I'd use two words to describe today's guest: really smart. After completing his time at UPEI, he went on to med school and eventually became an orthopedic surgeon in Winnipeg, where he continues to practice to this day. Please welcome Jhase Sniderman. Joining us today all the way from the Big Apple in New York City, Jhase Sniderman, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So you're down visiting your sister in New York City, I understand.
Yeah, we're just here for about 5 days or so.
Good stuff.
Brought our son to see some Christmas stuff and see my sister and eat at some nice restaurants.
Yeah, you picked the right spot.
Some would say it's the right spot.
So Jhase, just want to get in, chat a little bit about stuff here with you today, kind of bring you back a little bit in your hockey history and your time at UPEI here. But, when I was looking at your hockey career, you had a pretty interesting path in your junior days. You're a former Erie Otter, and of late the Erie Otters have been like the major pipeline here to UPEI, and you're a former Otter, and you won a gold medal with the Team Ontario in the U17. You had the opportunity to play in the Quebec League with Moncton, where you almost won a Memorial Cup. You had a little bit of time. You were kind of going all over Eastern Canada before eventually landing back with the London Knights. So maybe can you talk a little bit about some of your junior experience just before we get into the UPEI part?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I was a bit of a suitcase a little bit. I went to school at St. Mike's in Toronto, which is like a big prep school and very big on hockey. And I was drafted to Erie and went there for my 16-year-old year. And Erie is like a different spot. Like, I'm from Toronto, it's a big city, went to a private prep school, and then moved to Erie when I was 16, lived with a different family, going to like a public US school. So it was big culture shock.
Yeah.
That was like the year after Erie won the OHL championship.
Okay.
Or maybe 2 years after. So they were kind of like bottom of the barrel a little bit, because they peaked before that, and then they had a lot of high draft picks, because I think they bottomed out the year after. So me and Ryan O'Mara, who ended up being like a first round pick to the NHL, we were drafted there high, and we went there for our 16-year-old year.
Right.
And it was good because that was the year we played under 17 as well.
Yeah.
And ended up winning the gold medal, which was pretty cool. It was in Newfoundland that year.
Yeah. You had some good players on that team, and Cogliano and Mark Stahl and a few
Cogliano was really good at the time. He was probably the best player.
Yeah.
A bunch of guys played in the NHL though, more role type players.
Cal Clutterbuck was on that team, I think.
Yeah, Clutterbuck, Steve Downey, who had some hot moments in the NHL.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Stahl, I think. Yeah, maybe a few other guys as well.
So then you ended up how'd you end up in the Quebec League? Did you?
Funny story. So Jordan Nolan was drafted to Erie in my third year there. And his dad was coaching Moncton at the time.
Right, Ted,
yeah. So I had asked for a trade from Erie to somewhere else because the 20-year-old goalie had returned from the AHL, and I was likely not going to take over a bigger role. So I asked for a trade, and then Ted was looking for a goalie at the same time in Moncton, and they had the Memorial Cup that year. So I just said I wasn't going to go to any other team in Ontario, and put me on waivers, and then was picked up by Moncton. And it worked out really well because That was an awesome experience.
Right.
And that team was awesome, like so good, so many good players.
But geez, I mean, it had guys like Marchand, Luc Bourdon played on that team. Keith Yandel, I think, was on
Yeah,
that team. Was he not?
Randall was really good. Marchie was just 17 at the time,
Right.
so he hadn't even been drafted yet.
Yeah.
He's still the same player now that he was then. He's a bit of a weasel. It's funny. Me and my wife were when we came to PEI this summer. We went through Halifax, and I ran into Marchie at the airport there,
Walk away.
and I hadn't seen him since Moncton really.
Yeah.
And they recognized me, and we talked a little bit. So it was nice seeing him then. It's been like how many years? 15 or so years.
Yeah, right.
Crazy. Time goes by really fast.
Unreal, eh? Are you kind of surprised he turned out the way he did, hockey wise, like that he was as good as he was? Did you?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. I saw that tournament. I saw him play in that tournament. And he had a good tournament, but I didn't see it coming. Did you?
No. Well, he's very skilled and like feisty, but there's so many like skilled players in junior who don't make it.
Right.
It's hard to pick out who's actually going to do it, but he's kind of kept the same role the whole time, like skilled agitator.
Yeah.
But his like skills just translated really well to the NHL, I guess, where some guys just don't.
Right. You ended up a former team, a future teammate of yours, Aaron Dawson. He played in that tournament too, right? He was.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was on Peterborough.
Yeah. Did you guys beat him in the tournament? Do you remember?
Yeah, we beat everyone except for Quebec. And we beat Quebec in the finals of the Q championship, and then they got the best of us at the Mem Cup.
That's right.
That's when Alex Radulov was their star player.
Right.
He was unbelievable.
He was good.
He beat smoking cigarettes in between periods. Still get 6 points.
Kind of Guy Lafleur like.
Yeah. Some of those Russian guys, they're so good. And
one of your other teammates, Josh Heptich, he's coaching in the UNB. He's coaching with the UNB now.
Yeah, I saw that. I haven't seen Josh for a long time either.
He played in that team too, right? Just a couple of weeks ago when UNB was in town. So anyway, after that was over, you decide, okay. But before I go there, you went to Waterloo for a little bit, didn't you? Did you go play in Waterloo?
Yeah, I was killing time once again, waiting to be traded in my overage year.
Okay.
So Danny Flynn took over as coach in my overage year, and Nicola Riopel was the goalie I played with the year before, and he was like time for him to be a starter. He was quite good back then.
Right.
So Danny was looking to move me, and I just went back to Toronto because I wasn't going to hang around in Moncton.
Right.
And then like 2 months went by, and I was like, I should be doing something. So I went to school there, and I was just practicing every day with the Waterloo team.
Yeah.
Waiting to be traded, and then eventually I got traded to Rouyn-Noranda, which is the middle of nowhere. But it was also interesting. Very interesting experience for me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So then ultimately you end up at UPEI. How'd that come about?
All those schools, especially the maritime schools, recruit pretty hard. I talked to UMB and St. Mary's and Acadia, and then UPEI. They had sent out like a package when I was in Rouyn-Noranda, and Dylan Taylor was the coach back then.
Yeah, right.
And actually, our trainer at Rouyn-Noranda was from PEI by chance, so he was pushing for PEI as well. And then like my family and my grandparents always had a place in PEI growing up, and we used to go there kind of every summer.
Right.
So I was pretty like fond of PEI since I was really young, and they had no starting goalie, so that made sense for me. Like UMB would have been great, but they had like a starting goalie and just won the championship the year before, so I knew if I went there, I wouldn't be playing too much. So it kind of just made sense, and everything lined up, and the rest is just history.
And you ended up marrying an island girl.
Yeah,
Right?
I never thought I would do that, but I did
What's that?
it. So I never thought I would do it. Everyone, like when you go there, like, oh, you're gonna end up marrying someone from PEI. Everyone does. And I was like, oh, we'll see what happens, and obviously it happened. So,
Well, there's a lot. You're one in a long list of many who've done it.
oh,
So,
for sure,
I mean, even from your own team, if you look at guys, Matt Carter,
lots
Culler,
of us, yeah, and like Josh Patterson was a couple of years before me,
right?
and he played with me in Erie when I was 16. He was 20. And same thing. I think he met someone from PEI as well
Yeah,
when
he
he was
did.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Patty's still here.
yeah,
Yeah, good
great
stuff.
athlete.
So what? So you're young. You have a young fella, right? A boy.
Yeah, we got a 2.5-year-old.
Yeah. So Marina played field hockey at UPEI. You played ice hockey at UPEI.
Funny
What
story how we
hockey
met.
is that?
Yeah,
What hockey is the young fella going to play?
probably not field hockey. Not that there's anything wrong if he wants to play field hockey, but I feel like ice hockey. Marina played ice hockey too growing up,
Okay.
and like no one I knew played field hockey in Toronto. At least I think it's more popular in certain areas,
Yeah.
but we haven't got him on skates yet. So maybe this is the winter we get him on skates.
Sure. Okay. So if you look back in your time, Jhase, you know, you were here for 4 years. You lived with Matt for I think all 4 years. You lived with Dana Fraser for a couple of years as well over at Browns Court and not far from the university. And you
Browns
know,
Court.
when you think about your time at UPI, what are some of the things that stick out for you?
Well, Browns Court, one of them. There's so many like good memories of just hanging out with the guys.
Yeah.
Everyone lived in Browns Court during my first 2 years. Everyone kind of like lived there, and that's like where all the social stuff happened. So
Sure.
lots of good memories. Like I lived with Matt for my first 2 years. Zach McCullough, Jordan Knox lived together just around the corner,
Yeah.
so we would hang out a lot. Like best hockey moment early on there. Like our first game in my first year was against UMB, and like coming in, everyone just hear about UMB like they're the best and pay their players more, and everyone wants to beat them. And I guess a couple of years before, we weren't the best team,
Yeah.
so there was no expectation. And we ended up beating them in the first game of the season. It was in overtime. I think it was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So
Were
that
you
was pretty.
playing? Were you in
Yeah,
nets? Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty good moment. I think Zach McCullough scored the game winner. And he might not have scored any more goals the rest of his
Muller still talks
career.
about that to this day, doesn't he?
And he went end to end, somehow beat the goalie with a muffin of a shot.
Goalie felt sorry for him.
Yeah. Well, like Zach is a skills coach now, so he's still teaching kids how to play hockey.
Beautiful skater.
Yeah, great. He is a great skater and great skills.
Yeah. Yeah. So
For a
one of
big
the
guy.
things when I was sort of, you know, like we never met till today, Jay. So I was kind of doing some recon on you. And anyone I talked to always said your training was off the charts and your dedication was sort of off the charts. You know, anyone I talked to said that's the first thing that comes to mind is that, you know, no one worked harder than you and no one had the dedication that you had. Where did that come from? And I guess how has that kind of helped you not only in your academic career but maybe in life? I guess in general. But you know, maybe where did that all come from?
I was always like a good student in school growing up.
Right.
Kind of went away for a little bit during junior hockey times, but there was like a older player who had a big influence on me in Erie actually. So he was 20 and I was 18 or 17 at the time, and he was like in not great shape but very skilled. And then one summer he just got in like amazing shape, and he just said he worked at it kind of every day, and he turned into like a great player. His name was Jeff Platt. I think he still plays overseas. he was a really small skilled player, really good. And that just had a huge impression on me. And the next summer I got in like the best shape of my life, and it just kind of stuck with me, like the like how structured you have to be to actually do that.
Right.
And I just carried it forward into exercise and school and hockey, and just in order to succeed, you kind of have to be really focused on what you want. And I think if you just do one of those things in your life, it kind of just translates into other areas of your life.
Right. It was probably the same training regime that Wayne Savage would have adopted. Would it have been now?
We were very similar.
You guys would have had very similar training styles, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we had very similar lifestyles.
And Maverick Parks after it too. I mean, very similar, very similar guys.
Wayne's a natural, and I had to work more hard at it.
Yeah. No, he was a beauty. That was, and you really, if you think about it though, Jhase, that was really, you think about that era. It was you and Savvy for a couple of years, and then you and Parksy for I think one, right? And then
me and Mark Guggenberger
would have been in between. So that was pretty good. That was a pretty good goaltending era when you think about the goalies that were there.
Probably best of all time.
I don't know. Geez, there might be some alumni challenging you on that.
Paul Drew is pretty good.
Yeah, but Poozy was by himself. He played all the games. Flicker, same sort of thing. Yeah. No, but really, in all seriousness, it was. I don't think you're far off in saying it was one of the strongest eras of goaltending that we ever had. So thanks for saying that. So you went on from UPEI. You obviously got in the academic stream, pursuing your academics, and Matt said you're the smartest guy he's ever met in his life. So he said you used to take textbooks into the dressing room, for Jay's sake. And he said, but you've obviously dedicated yourself to academics, and you parlayed that into a career as an orthopedic surgeon. When you left UPEI, what happened? Like you kind of maybe take us through that a little bit.
Well, I went to UPEI partially because they had a vet school.
Okay.
And I thought maybe I want to be a veterinarian.
Okay.
And then the coach at the time, he picked all my courses for me in my first year, Dylan, and didn't pick the right courses. So and then I realized I kind of I like dogs, so wouldn't be a great veterinarian. Yeah. I like sports, so I kind of maybe I'd be like a sports doctor. Then I started looking up how to get into medical school. I did well in school, so I was like, what am I going to do with my good marks? I might as well translate into something. So applied to medical school during my fourth year, and I got into med school in Ottawa, and ended up going straight from UPEI to Ottawa.
Okay.
For med school, did 4 years of med school in Ottawa. Marina came with me, and we moved there. She nursed in Ottawa while I was in med school.
Right.
And then I got interested in orthopedic surgery, partially because it's very involved with sports. And I thought it would be cool to be like the Maple Leafs team doctor. So that was my original goal. But then I realized during residency training in Toronto that I didn't love sports surgery.
Did you do your residency at U of T or in Toronto?
I did at U of T in Toronto, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is I always wanted to go back to Toronto for something, and that's where my family is. So I went back to Toronto for residency, and that's the biggest program in Canada. So it was really great. And then I got interested in doing I do hip and knee replacements, complex hip and knee and redo hip and knee replacements, and then some fixing broken bones, which is called trauma. So I do that now, and I teach residents. And I teach medical students, and I teach fellows who are subspecializing in that. And I also did a fellowship year in Boston 2 years ago, which was just doing hip and knee replacements there.
Wow. So I replaced my right one my left one's coming up here in a number of years. I'm trying to delay that one as long as I can, but maybe I'll give you a call. Maybe I'll give you a call if it gets really bad in the next little while.
Well,
have you ever gone back and worked with athletes? Like, you know, you're kind of saying earlier that you might want to have been the team doctor for the Leafs, but have you had any like working with teams or working with athletic programs or anything like that since you become an orthopedic surgeon?
like in residency training, we do like sports rotations, which are like 3 or 4 months long. And when you're on that rotation, you work with like teams. So you work with the U of T teams, like a couple of guys, either the Blue Jays doctor or the Leafs doctor. So you go to help them sometimes with games, but that's about as far as you go until if you subspecialize in sports, then you end up doing that kind of like full time. But that's a choice you had to make like partially through residency.
Okay. Well, listen, the premier PEI is Denny King, and Denny King, of course, is a big supporter of UPEI men's hockey. So, if ever you're looking for a position at our new medical school down here, Jason, you want to come down and teach in our new UPEI medical school or become an orthopedic surgeon at PEI, I think we might be able to pull some strings for you.
Okay, keep it in mind.
Keep that in mind. So, Jhase, a lot of people may not know, but you have a pretty famous grandfather. People may not know the name Sam Sniderman, but they do know the name Sam the Record Man. And Sam the Record Man, of course, being one of the most iconic music stores in Canada for sure for a number of years. And you mentioned earlier about the connection of your grandfather summering here and you coming back to PEI and stuff like that. What's it like having an iconic figure like Sam was as your grandfather?
It's funny because like a lot of people my age, and I'm old now, so people younger than me, they just don't know what that is anymore. So it's not a big deal to younger people, but like the people older than me who like were fans of like records and CDs when they were relevant. It was a big deal to them, and everyone has memories. A lot of people have memories of going to like the big store that was in downtown Toronto and buying records and seeing bands. And even like when I see patients now in clinic, a lot of them like do research and they look you up before they see you, and they know that fact and they find it pretty interesting as well. Cool. So it's cool. Like he was like very important in Canadian music and part of the Order of Canada. So it was like just a cool part of my family history.
Did you have any interest, or did your dad or any of the sons have follow up on that part? Like, did they get in the industry as well too?
My dad was in the industry since he was like 18, so he did everything for my grandpa. He took over everything, and my grandpa was kind of more the figurehead. My dad ran the business essentially. Okay. Yeah, so he did everything. He was always at the store, and that was his job pretty much my whole life growing up, kind of thing.
Did you hang around the stores much?
Yeah, I used to go there every weekend. We'd go Saturday morning, go down there, and there's a pizza place across the street. Get pizza. My grandpa used to always have Oreos up in his office. Go get some Oreos. He used to have video games at the store. He played video games all Saturday. So I had lots of good memories.
Cool. Neat. I heard a story one time that your grandfather would, whenever there was a new album come out, he would get your grandmother to cook a bunch of food. And whenever the delivery person would come by to put the first album out, your grandfather would always keep them there longer because he didn't want them getting to other stores, so that people would have the first album bought at Sam the Record Man. Is there any truth to that sort of urban legend?
I feel like I've heard a story like that before, and it would not surprise me because he was very competitive.
Yeah.
And maybe I get some of my competitiveness from him, but it would not surprise me if that was true.
Is that right, eh? Did you happen to watch the Tragically Hip documentary recently?
I have seen bits and clips of it, but I've never seen the whole thing. I actually knew Gord reasonably well.
Yeah.
Growing up, his daughter was friends with my sister growing up in Toronto,
Okay.
and we would see Gord whenever I came back from playing junior. I'd see him over the winter holidays and play shinny hockey and stuff. And
Yeah.
he was like a big hockey fan, so he was always very
Yeah.
interested in what was going on.
Of course, he's a fellow. He
And
was a fellow Bruin fan.
yeah, I know.
Sinden's godson or something, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was a big Bruins fan.
It was interesting in the segment. They talked. There was a thing about Tower Records was looking to do a promo of the Hip playing on the roof of their store, kind of like the Beatles, and it was promoting Trouble at the Hen House, one of their albums. And it didn't sit well with the band, and one of the reasons is because they were Sam the Record Man people, and they felt that if they went ahead and struck this deal with Tower Records, it would have brought them all kinds of exposure into the U.S. and all kinds of markets. They said, no, we're loyal to Sam the Record Man because he supported us, and they kind of they gave up on that big lucrative deal because of their loyalty to your grandfather. I thought that was a pretty cool story.
That's a cool story. He's a loyal guy. He's like a loyal Canadian down to the bone. So
right,
and that's why they're so famous here. So it might have been partially good that they never went to the U.S. market as much as they did here.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with that. It was interesting too. I think your grandfather did an interesting Have you been to Rock Barra on the eastern end of the island?
Of course, I've been to Rock Barra.
Okay, so. But he gives up a piece of property. I think it was like 20 acres or something like that, right? And he leased it. $1 for 50 years, correct?
Yeah, quite the deal.
Yeah. and that's still going. It's like an artist retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and that's still going. That's a pretty generous thing for your grandfather to do. I mean, like. Not only, I guess it kind of speaks to the loyalty that he had to Canadian musicians, and I guess the love he had for Canadian music as well too.
Yeah, he truly loved that, like Canada and Prince Edward Island. Like he loved PEI, and he has lots of land still that's not being used there. He tried to like start a winery as well down in Surrey,
that's right.
Which was a failure.
I think that was your grandmother's idea, was it not?
Maybe he blamed it on her. I think they were trying to grow Merlot there, which was probably not a good choice.
Right.
That's what he liked.
Right. Well, Jhase, listen, you've got a really unique story, very successful story, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on here was to share the connection that you have to PEI, but more importantly, share and celebrate the success you've had as not only a student athlete, but as an orthopedic surgeon. And I wish you continued good luck and success in your career. And thanks for being a great Panther. And thanks for coming on and being part of the segment today.
Thanks so much. It was great. Lots of fun. And I owe kind of everything to UPEI, which gave me my start in my academic career, and it gave me a good chance to somewhere to finish my hockey career. So I'm forever grateful to PEI and to Forby and even Dylan Taylor who helped recruit me there in the first place.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Jhase, and Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thanks. Merry Christmas to you as well.
Okay, buddy.